Eric Goodman, who's the finance manager for State Water Contractors. And Jonathan presented on what goes into calculating DWR variable charges back in early October to the State Water Project Committee. And they're gracious enough to come down this evening and give the same presentation. A little added twist to it, I guess, some more detail to the full board. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jonathan.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you for attending.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you. I think you're good to go.
It's a little touchy. Give it a go. Let's see. There we go. All right.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much for having me today here today. My name is Jonathan Young. I'm the energy manager with the State Water Contractors. So in my role, I interact with the Department of Water Resources to try and understand how DWR can build its power portfolio, the present and the future, to meet the energy needs of the State Water Project, and do that in a way that doesn't jeopardize water delivery, but also works towards water affordability. So as we move through the presentation today, we're really just going to cover kind of what are the factors that go into the energy rates for the State Water Project, and I'll give an overall landscape of the energy and water picture and some of the factors that go into that. My colleague Eric will really dive into the numbers, specifically how the agency is impacted by that. And then we'll kind of back out of that and go into what we're seeing in the energy market at large and what we're going to see in the future for State Water Project energy costs. So to keep in mind throughout the presentation, two of the biggest drivers of variability, I'm sure these are pretty familiar to you all, is just the change in allocation and then energy prices. So what's happening in the market of where the Department of Water Resources goes and sells and purchases power from. One thing we want to keep in mind, and Eric will touch on this in his portion of the presentation, is that many of the costs in Table 2 are fixed. They're not actually variable. They deal with debt service. So we'll highlight that later in the presentation. And then what is known as the open position for the State Water Project, that is really just what does the project have to purchase on the market. So the project consumes power. About half of its power needs are met with its own hydro generation, and then it can enter into contracts with power resources. So we drove by some today. So solar generation facilities is one thing the department contracts with, but then it also has to go purchase power to meet its needs. So all the assumptions that occur for the project are based on a 55% allocation, which comes from the delivery capability report, which is updated every couple of years. And then other things to keep in mind when we talk about energy costs, and you'll see this in some of the slides I'll touch on, is there's kind of a breakdown in California between the north and the south, and then also what's known as on-peak or off-peak. So if you have, through Southern California Edison, time of use rates that you pay on your bills, on-peak, off-peak is very similar to that. And also that can change throughout the year. So one of the biggest drivers I mentioned earlier is just variability of water delivery. I think as we've seen in the last 5 years, we have seen swings between drought and 100% allocation years. And so that's really going to be the main driver of what the costs are for energy. So the more water we have to pump, the more energy we have to procure. So that's kind of a basic one. The second part of it just has to do with the variability of energy pricing in California. And if you want to take a look at this slide, the red line has to do with 2024. And you can see we had a pretty mild energy cost year. And that's really just what happens in the winter. Do we have a cold snap? Or in the summer, do we have a heat wave? So ultimately, the way energy pricing is really set in California is by how much natural gas is used to meet the system needs during the summer and during the winter. So when that occurs, that will dictate how the costs are for the rest of the year. So this is a slide I found. It's a little bit old. It doesn't have the East Branch extension in it, but it has some really good information about the intensity of the power needed to move the water throughout the system. So what you'll see is this is all the figures are in kilowatt hours per acre foot. And then the top figure will be the cumulative energy as it moves through the system. The lower figure is what each facility needs to move an acre foot of water. So you'll see as you move through Dos Amigos and Buena Vista and Wheeler Ridge, it starts to require more and more power to move through the system. And that's really going to impact the prices at different turnouts in different areas. And then as we move over to Alamo, I think last time when I presented in October, somebody asked a great question, which was, what's that negative number mean? And that is generation. So you're recovering some of that power through generation. So when you see a negative number, that means there is a generating facility there. And so you'll see there's an arrow there. I think Peter put it in last time, but it's arrow pointing out where we are in the system. So we do have pretty high power use to get the power to the Alamo area, or the Alamo pumping plant and generating plant. So there are high power usage areas, but you do have some recovery in the form of generating there. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to Eric.
Hello everyone, I'm Eric Goodman. I've been with State Water Contractors for only 7 weeks now, so this is actually my first board presentation. I just spent 13 years at the Department of Water Resources putting together the annual statements of charges that your ratepayers are paying on. So I'm pretty familiar with these topics. The first thing we want to talk about is that energy rate. It's a pooled rate. Essentially, it doesn't matter where you are across the aqueduct, it's going to be the same price for that energy. We talk about it in mils per kilowatt hour, or a mill rate. So if you're ever on a call with DWR and they talk about the mill rate is 60, that basically means that a pumping plant rate is going to be a certain dollar related to that rate. So if the mill rate goes up, your pumping plant rates are going to go up. And why that matters is because, as we saw in the last slide here, the intensity to get the water to AVEK is fairly high. It takes 3,700 kilowatt hours per acre foot. So what that means is that it's going to cost a certain dollars per acre foot to deliver through Alamo, which is the primary pumping plant where your customers receive their water. So what this is showing is essentially the Department of Water Resources comes up with the loads that they're going to need to be able to deliver water, basically how much is requested by all of us, the contractor, and then we put that into a rate, a melded rate, and then we come up with what that forecasted power cost and sales are going to be, and all of these things combined together to come up with basically the price of gas, we can call it. So if it's $4.50 for the price of gas, everybody's going to be paying that same price, but you might have to go further. If you go further, you're going to use more fuel, more gas. So that's how you can see the rate that's at Alamo. It's a little further down. We've had to go over the Grapevine, and that's a big lift. And all of these things are going to be building into what is your variable rate that pays your energy charges. So how that works is essentially we have this melded rate, and then every individual pumping plant is applied that rate. So for someone like Edmonston, if you apply that rate, it might cost you $150 to get through Edmonston. But then once we get to Alamo, as Jonathan mentioned, there are some recovery generation at some of these plants. Alamo does receive some of that. So you actually receive a little bit of a credit when your water goes through that. Reduces the rate a fraction. So we come up with a cumulative plant rate, and then we bill per acre foot out of that turnout. So if your water's going to many of these turnouts on the aqueduct, every acre foot is priced exactly the same at that turnout. And you'll see that in a monthly variable invoice, which my team used to put together, and it shows you every single contract that the agency participates in and for that month, and for prior months if there's any changes that have been made. So what you're looking at now is called Table 2. Table 2 is what the Department of Water Resources uses to pull together all of their energy. On the top are the resources. Basically, what do they have available? So the things that Jonathan mentioned earlier, some of these things are fixed. So we have to pay for Oroville reconstruction. We have to pay for when the Thermalito pumping plant caught on fire in 2012. So these kinds of things go into our rates for energy because they're an energy facility. So we're going to combine together all of these different capital costs, and those are going to be added on to what we have to buy from the California ISO. So essentially, we're going to have resources that we have. We're going to have to also go to the grid and or the market and buy some energy. And then we also have things that we have to, that we're beholden to legislative acts, such as, trying to be renewable by 2035. So the department has made a concentrated effort to go and invest in renewable sources. Luckily, a lot of the portfolio is hydro, but they're having to offset some of some other power sources with clean solar energy. So what this is doing is it's taking together on the top, essentially the total resources line. There's a total resources line on the top, and that is basically telling us how much the power is going to cost. And then on the bottom, we have how much are we going to have to go out to the market and we're going to be able to sell to offset some of those costs. And we come up with this rate. And that rate is what's applied to your bill, to your energy. And that's the rate that talked about the melded unit rate. So that's the number that DWR constantly talks about for how to bill your energy. Kind of getting back down to the brass tacks, in April of this year at Alamo, on the left-hand side of our screen, it costs $204 an acre foot to deliver water. This was in April where they were still trying to figure out the water allocations for the year. It's kind of that time when the final rate has not been set yet. So when we go to a yearly view in the next slide, this is going to show you how the department had their rates back in January when they provided an initial invoice rate study. About $266 an acre foot to deliver from Alamo. And now currently, November, September, October, on the far right side, it's $190. So essentially what's changed is our water allocation has gone up. And whenever the water allocation goes up, essentially the mill rate's going to be able to go down because you have more water flowing through the system. So when you have more water flowing through the system, cumulatively, it's just a little bit cheaper. We also have energy price updates. Those things are happening constantly. The department's constantly trying to procure energy and go to the day ahead market to sell energy, to hedge, to make sure all of us aren't paying so much. And then on item 3 here, other things that change the rate are going to be renewable energy revenues for renewable energy certificates. So those are the kinds of sales that we're going to be able to offset some of the costs that the department has to pay. Essentially, in the beginning of the year, the water allocation is fairly low. If we've had a drought, 5-10% higher rate. And then as we reach the middle of the year and the water years stabilize, the rate generally has dropped. So that's right now, we're at a rate of 53 mils. That was that melded rate. We started at 77. So it's dropped from 77 to 53. And I believe that is all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Eric. So now we kind of moved through what costs are. I wanted to touch on what is DWR and state water contractors trying to do to reduce impacts. As the California grid has changed from its resources, so from natural gas, coal, to more distributed resources like energy and solar, it changes the way the market is priced. So for this slide, the big thing to pay attention to is that large yellow blob, and that's solar power when it comes onto the grid. So what that does is that results in significantly lower costs during the day to purchase power from the market and to sell power from the market. So the advantage for that is the State Water Project is what I would call a flexible taker of energy prices, and also a flexible generator to try and capture as much revenues as possible. So essentially what you want to do is you want to pump as much as you can when there's a lot of solar on the system and prices are low, and you want to hold off your generation till later in the evening hours or in the early morning. So the other colors that are kind of interesting on here to look at is the purple one. You'll see that's batteries. So that's kind of a relatively new phenomenon on the California grid. So what's essentially happening is in the morning, batteries are producing power, then they're consuming power in the middle of the day. They should be charging using solar power. And then that big purple blob that occurs from 5 p.m. onward is really those batteries discharging the energy they've captured during the day. And that's similar to a profile that like Hydro has for the State Water Project. So when you want to generate out of Hyatt, Castaic, Warren, those are really the times you want to do it in the evening hours. And that's important because as more and more solar comes onto the grid, you're going to see this blob get bigger, and the ability of the project to capture low prices to pump water and to generate when prices are high. So I like this slide because it just provides a slightly different visual than what I touched on. So on the left-hand side, on October 16th, you'll see energy prices at different dots. The dots are basically what the energy price is at that location on the California grid. Blue or purple colors are lower prices and sometimes negative prices. And then anything you see that's yellow to red to orange is higher prices. So 1 p.m., especially in the southern part of California, prices are low. And that's because you have so much solar on board that, folks it's moving through the system. Natural gas isn't providing a lot of generation, and so the prices are low. During the evening or 8 p.m., what happens is that solar is gone and prices are going to rise as those natural gas generation facilities start to ramp up and are really providing the power throughout the state. So what that means at each of the pumping plants that Eric touched on, you may want to purchase power at select pumping plants throughout the day, and as that water moves through the system, you're going to want to avoid those high-priced hours. So it's really dictating, to some extent, obviously water delivery is number one, but number two is when you pump, how you pump can actually result in significant savings for the State Water Project. So this is something that DWR is actively reoperating the project too. So one of these days I'll put together a slide I'd love to show you guys, but really in the last 10 years how DWR has operated the project to take advantage of this lower pricing during the day. So kind of another way to visualize this is just with this third graphic I wanted to show you. And so the blue bars are the load demand. So what is the demand of the pumps during the day at given various hours of the day? And then the red line that you see spiking is DALMP, which stands for day ahead locational marginal price. So basically, what is the price
up over time because investors want more return for longer duration. You're on the shorter end of that curve, so you're not paying those high interest rates out there for 30-year money, which is what the state is going at. So there's a lot involved there.
Hey, Michael, why don't you explain that if the board chose to go the refunding option, that we could not call on that money or those bonds for 10 years?
You actually sent that to me in an email, and I
Yeah.
forgot, so thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. So when we sell, typically for municipal bonds, there's a 10-year period where investors don't want you to have the option to redeem bonds they can earn return. So with these bonds being 11 years, there's a good chance that you could not have an opportunity to call them again. Once you block them in, you pay them until maturity. Now, for some clients, they prefer like a 5-year par call because they want another chance to do that. Now, when they do that, it costs more because the investors want more insurance. And so there's a higher cost. And so there is an opportunity. So when we would come back in February, we can lay out what the impact is on savings. But if it's a 5-year par call, what would that do to debt service savings? Or a 10-year par call, what that would do to debt service savings. So you're either taking your savings now, or you're keeping that option and taking less savings now and hope that you can generate more savings later. So it's a little bit of movement depending on the yield curve. But for the most part, in a transaction like this, to grab as many debt service savings as you can on such a short deal, you'd have a 10-year par call, maybe a 9-year call, which is, to Matt's point, you're really saying we're locking in these rates. We're going to grab as many savings as we can today, and we're not worried about it. Yes, sir.
If between now and February, March, whenever, June, when we sell, if interest rates go down, does that 4.8 million savings go up?
Goes up. That's correct.
Because what is, do you have any information of where you think rates will be going in the next 6 months?
That's a very good question. What our economists are projecting is that the Fed will yet again make one more cut this year, and perhaps again in the first quarter of 2026. So that will tend to make short-term rates go down and have the yield curve be steeper. But because you're in the first 10 years, any cuts that the Fed makes tends to drive those short-term interest rates down, which would be of benefit to the agency. And again, you're somewhat hedged because if you do this and interest rates go up and it doesn't work, sure, you've spent $35,000 to try to take advantage of the opportunity. But then again, your investment rates have gone up too, so you're making much more.
Making more money.
If rates go down, now you're saving more money. So, but there is a cost.
So we really don't have to make a decision now on what we're going to do. The only decision maybe is start the process to get the rating and move forward, and around March, April would be decision time, right?
That's correct, Director Paris. So to take advantage of interest rates when you can sell bonds, beginning of next year, you would have to invest the time to get ready. And once you're ready, then you can grab those savings.
How long is that rating good for?
The ratings tend to be good for 3, 6 months, sometimes 9 months, depending on if something happens at the agency that would put pressure on that rating down. Your rating has been the same for quite some time. I don't foresee that. Depends on if it's terrible, but then within a day, we could be in the market and take advantage of that. And I've been doing this for more than 30 years. I stopped counting at 30. And I have yet to have a transaction like this that didn't eventually close. So, because of the volatility in the market. But until you're ready, it's all.
So what is your recommendation?
I suggest that the agency move forward with this and get ready, and then we can come back. And along the way, we can provide updates on what the market's doing. But until we come back and get the authorization and be ready to sell bonds, it's all really theoretical. But if you start getting ready, then you have an opportunity to strike and lock in those savings, as early as first quarter next year.
Does staff have a recommendation?
I don't know. What do you think, Teresa? Just joking. I'm not going to put her on the spot like
Save money, don't save.
I had one comment for that recommendation. Wasn't there a bond that we paid off last year?
Yeah, a couple years ago, it was a variable rate bond, and that was about 45 million
That's right.
that we paid off.
Okay, so my question would be, why did we pay that one off? We wouldn't pay this off.
Well, the 45 million, that was a variable rate. So we were seeing increases to the interest rate that we were paying on that money.
Increases in the interest rate because short-term rates went really high. And the agency, because of the way those bonds work, you needed a credit provider every kind of 3 years.
That's right.
And as the cycle progressed, the cost of that kept going up.
So that was a bad bond compared to?
No. Over the life of that transaction, right? The agency saved a significant amount of money because there was a long period of time beginning in 2000 the financial crisis and through COVID, let's say from 2010 through probably 2022, where the interest rates paid to the investor was probably sometimes like 1 basis point. And so the cost of that debt was less than 0.5%. It was a fantastic transaction for the agency. But when the Fed started raising rates in the short term, those interest rates went from 0.05% over 4%. And then of course you add on the cost of the letter of credit, it got expensive.
As far as next year on rates, you only see one rate reduction the first quarter of next year?
Perhaps more, but what we're seeing now is that the market is starting to price those in already. And that's why we're seeing short-term rates on that. Oh, the star of the show just left. It's fantastic. Yeah, so we're seeing that, but as the Fed progresses, we're seeing those rates, investors are assuming those rates are gonna happen, so we're seeing those short-term rates go down. Now, again, we can't time the market, but what we do know is that in the current market, we anticipate in the first quarter, low interest rates continue, and it's an opportunity to lock in savings for the agency and your ratepayers.
Wouldn't our credit rating go up if we paid this bond off?
Not necessarily. The agency has very little debt compared to your peers. And so when you read the rating agency reports, it has nothing to do with the amount of debt you have outstanding. It really has to do with, how are you going to transition through the cost of water, keep raising your rates. It's a AA rating, which is very strong. The way that we look at debt is that the agency can borrow at less than, let's say it's 3%. So if you can borrow at 3% for 10 and a half, 11 years, that's a lower cost of funds than we can get out in the market ourselves. So when we say we, your ratepayers also, because of your high credit rating, your strong financial performance, strong governance, the low interest rates and your strong credit rating, you can lock that in, so it's generational.
Even our bank or stored water supplies has impacted the credit rating.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they look at
all of the infrastructure you put in, all the hard work for you and your predecessors has really, gives you a high demand for those bonds, and that's where the debt's the same.
So this is listed, oh, sorry, I'm interrupting.
No, go ahead.
No, so this is listed as presentation tonight on the agenda. There's no action item listed.
Yep.
We can think about it and then come back with a decision whether or not to proceed with the credit rating, as Michael suggested, of S&P.
Yeah. Matt, I would agree with that. We're not under the gun to do anything right now. We've got a few weeks, and let's just see where it goes. And it looks promising, but discussing this with staff and board members, we can make a decision this probably, hopefully in November or first part of December.
Yeah.
Everything looks good, but the one item you brought up is about that 10 years. We gotta be careful about that. And there's cost associated with it, but it does look promising. Is there any other questions?
I think good presentation.
Yeah, excellent presentation.
And if anything comes up, we're happy to answer
Yeah.
questions. Always happy.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
George, is it your plan, we put it back on the agenda in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean,
After we
finance committee may want to talk about it.
talk about it and get some recommendations.
Should probably be on the agenda of the next meeting, or at least,
Yep.
or maybe if not, hopefully we're ready to do it, but I think we're close.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
Okay, the next item on the Finance Committee report is 8B2, consideration and possible action to accept and file the check register list for the period of October 16th through 29th, 2025. And I believe our general manager will review with us some of the key items.
All right, thank you, Director Dias. So this, beginning on page 11 of your packet, is the check run for this period. This was reviewed by the Finance Committee last week in detail. I'll hit just a couple of the highlights. Item number 1 is our monthly fixed payment to Department of Water Resources associated with our statement of charges. And it's just under $1.5 million for the month. Items 8 and 9 are kind of unusual. As you know, we don't pay a lot of property tax. We're exempt from most property taxes, but when we own property outside the agency bound service area that don't have facilities on them to meet our mission, we are subject to paying the county taxes. So we own 2 very small parcels within Palmdale Water District service area along Sierra Highway that, that we don't have any facilities on those parcels, and so therefore we have to pay the property tax. On one of these parcels, we do have a lease for a sign company, so we generate about $750 per month under that lease, so pretty good deal there. Moving on to page 12 of your packet, item 21 is our annual payment to Aqua JPIA. That's our insurance provider. And this is for our annual automobile and general liability program. And it's about $180,000 for the year. Everything else is pretty routine, unless you had any questions.
Okay, if there's no further questions or comments, Dr. Dias, are you recommending we approve this?
Yes, in fact, I'll make a motion that we approve Board Order 8B2.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion and there's a second. If there's no further questions or comments, Madam Secretary?
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Jay Tremblay,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Yeah, thank you much.
And that would conclude the Finance Committee report, Mr. President.
Yeah, good report. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, water projects committee. And Director, we have 4 items. And Director Miller is chairman of that committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. We met on October 29th, and these 4 items are going to be presented by our senior engineer, Joe Roberts.
Thank you, Director Miller. Good evening, directors. First item is a warranty deed and, warranty deed for the North Edwards Water District turnout sites. If you remember a while ago, we worked with North Edwards Water District to build a new turnout for their distribution system. It's right on Lorraine Avenue where that star is at, just north of North Gate or the Edwards Air Force Base. This is a photo of the meter. It's a vault with 2 4-inch lines. We take water off our north feeder and then send it directly into their system. All of the work was done between August of 22 and March of 24. Our staff looked at it, and so did AECom, who was under contract with North Edwards. Everything was done per the plans and specs and in accordance with our standards. They've given us a warranty deed that transfers all of the improvements over to AVEK. And those improvements are about 40 feet of 4-inch pipe, and then the turnout vault and other things like the air valve or meters. Accepting and reporting that deed transfers everything over to AVEK, all O&M responsibilities as well as ownership. It's already been signed by North Edwards. So really the last thing to do is sign it ourselves and file it with the county. So get the recommendation from staff and water projects.
Dr. Miller, do you have a recommendation?
The committee agrees that we should go ahead and move forward on accepting and reporting the warranty deed. So I'll move that.
If we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second that motion,
Okay,
Mr. President.
motion and a second. If there's no further questions or comments, Madam Secretary?
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Jay Tremblay,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Yeah, thank you much. Okay,
Mr. Robert. go
The
ahead.
next one is notice of completion for the chemical tank recoating project. If you remember a while ago, we issued a contract to recoat some of our chemical tanks. These are fiberglass tanks outdoors that hold some chemical we use for our treatment. 6 of them were located here at Quartz Hill, and then the 3 on the right-hand photo are over at our East Side Water Treatment Plant.
So,
Go
are
ahead.
you done?
No, I was waiting for the clicker to work.
The clicker, oh, yeah, more pictures.
Yeah, so, this is just some photos of what they did. Pressure wash, blast all the paint off, sand everything to get the surface nice and prepared, and then they brushed on their paint and rolled it on at the end. Little before and after, so you can see what they did. That's here at Fort Hill. The FD Thomas was the contractor. They did an excellent job. They're 100% done and off the site. We have about $4,255 in retention that we would release 30 days after we file the notice of completion.
Is there a recommendation on this one?
Yes, the committee also agrees to go ahead and move forward on the notice, filing the notice of completion on this project. So I'll move.
We have a motion by Director Miller.
And I'll, let Gary back.
Second, Van Dam. If there are no further questions or comments, Madam Secretary?
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Harris,
Yes.
Jay Tremblay,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried, yeah, thank you.
All right, so the next one is another notice of completion, this being for the roof next door. Again, some photos. You're all familiar, but they tore off the old roof, swapped out some plywood, put new underlayment material on, and then slapped on the new metal roof. That's that. We have a little photo show for you, I think. Photo taken each day with the drone that they were on site. Shakier than I remember it being. All right, so that's that. And another before and after.
Do you remember how many days that actually took or months to complete?
It was in total about working days, about 40 to 45.
And it only rained once, I think.
It only rained one time, and we did not have any leaks. So that was a good sign.
Staff's recommending that, so,
Yeah, I'll move on to 8C3 to go ahead and, file the notice of completion.
motion by Director Miller,
I'll second.
second by Director Mercy. No further questions or comments, Madam Secretary?
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Harris,
Yes.
Jay Tremblay,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. You might want to hold that check till next week after the rains.
Good idea, George.
All right, so my last item for you is consideration and possible action on an amendment to AV Engineering's contract for the maintenance facility design. You remember a while ago, the board authorized a contract with them to design the maintenance facility. So what they did was a siting study, looking at potential locations around the plant, some survey and geotechnical work, and then a civil site design, doing the pad, grading, and on-site utilities. So to date, they've completed the siting study, survey, and geotechnical, and the civil site work is in progress. This is an aerial photo, not to scale, so don't think about it too hard. I just drew a rectangle. But that's roughly where the shop's going to be relative to our treatment plant. And while they were doing the work of the preliminary design and survey, they noticed a couple issues with our existing site. The first being that the elevation around the clear well is not the best. There's some drainage issues where the water ponds, and building the maintenance shop would only make those issues worse. So what we asked them to do was, you're already gonna be in the area, you already have a survey done, let's modify the grade around that area, and then we'll fix this problem in addition to the building shop. So for the engineer, that requires a couple more plan sheets. They have to relook at their hydrology study and then they have to change a couple things for the drainage details and their cost estimate. The next issue we had found was related to the water. For the building, we have a 4-inch utility line that loops around the plant and the site, and then actually goes north across Avenue N. That was going to be our source of water for the fire suppression system on the building. It's not quite big enough to do what we need it to do. So what we've asked the engineer to look at is tying a pump into the potable water side and replacing some of that 4-inch pipe with new 12-inch. That'll let us get enough to the building and then give us a little backup to backfeed our utility water line. In seeing that, they have a little bit more work to plot some utilities in areas that weren't previously accounted for. The designs take a bit of time, as well as the hydraulic modeling and sizing the right pump. That's that. The big thing becomes the cost. So basically what we're looking at to address the first issue with the existing grade of about $13,250, and then the utility design is $16,250. Total price of the amendment is $29,500, which brings us up to $114,250 for the whole project. They're working hard on it, so they hope to be done February of next year. Any questions?
So I just want to share, in committee, I brought up the concern, if we go back to the picture, they're going to be replacing the valve next to the clear well.
Yeah.
And if you want to clarify, this project won't even have, go ahead, you explain that this is going to be done, this work is going to be done prior to them doing any other kind of work.
Right, yeah, we expect the valve replacement work to be done by March. So the contractor doing this work won't be on site until all that work is completed and they're out of the way.
Yeah, that was one of the concerns. The other concern I had is if there's a wash up or restroom in the building, then where's the waste go? And
just to the south of the building, there's going to be a septic tank and leach field.
otherwise, the committee agrees on moving forward to have that design amended. And I would recommend moving forward with that with a more motion.
Motion by Director Miller.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
Director Ferris, okay.
Well, I was gonna, but it's that in
I'm sorry.
I'm waiting for Drew to get with it right here. To do the first motion so I can.
Next time, Jay. If there's no further comments or questions, Madam Secretary?
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Jay Tremblay,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Yep, thank you.
Mr. President, you might want to save the motion to adjourn for Jake.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay, Jay. Okay. We're moving on to item number 9, General Manager's Report.
All right, thank you, President Lane. So we have just a few slides. The first 3 slides, I think, Peter is gonna cover.
All right, thank you, Matt. Good evening, President Lane, board members. Just a brief update on things going on with the State Water Project. So last time we saw these graphs, we were about halfway to average, and right now we're above average in both the Northern Sierras and San Joaquin for October. November has started off kind of dry, but as we all know, we got some rain coming, so hopefully that'll bump those numbers up above average for November as well. So next slide, Holly. A little update on spill risk. Spill risk continues to decline. So we're looking at San Luis Reservoir, and the dark blue is DWR's or State Water Project's share of water in San Luis Reservoir. And while we're close to our portion being filled, we have 800,000 acre feet in there, and got about a little over 1 million acre feet of total storage for State Water Project. The San Luis Reservoir itself is only half full right now. So there was some very salty conditions in the Delta that reduced pumping over October. And we're hoping with this big rain event that's coming, that'll flush that out and we'll get renewed good pumping, but it's less and less likely that we'll spill San Luis by the end of the year. Beginning in 2026, it still remains a possibility. All right, next slide. All right, speaking of the rain that's coming, there's that blob. It's gonna pretty much hit all of California and start on Wednesday in Northern California and then hit us down here Thursday. So good chunk of rain and probably get some good snowpack in the northern and central Sierras as well. Unfortunately, there doesn't look like there's a whole lot behind it for the next probably 10 days, but those things can change. So that's just a brief update on how things are shaping up in terms of spill risk and also water for State Water Project. And happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Pete. So then just a quick update on, oh, I'm sorry.
Question.
Yeah.
On that graph, what are the little black dots along the coastline? Are those monitoring stations or something?
Yeah, so that's essentially where that intensity of water will hit. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, just a few updates on some upcoming events. We had scheduled the CSDA chapter luncheon on for this Thursday, but that got rescheduled. You should have all received an email from Holly. I guess Congressman Whitesides he was the guest speaker and had to fly back to Washington to vote next couple days on the budget. There's no water master meeting in November. However, there is a water master advisory committee on Wednesday of next week at 10 a.m. It's in person at Palmdale Water District's office or on Zoom. And the focus of that advisory committee meeting is going to be the storage agreement template or discussion. It's been a hot topic with the water master recently, and so they're gonna have a dedicated advisory committee just to talk about that. And then there'll be a special water master advisory committee on Wednesday, December 10th at 9 a.m. Is that 9 a.m.? 10, it is 9, special, starting early. And that's to go over the applications and whatever is gonna be on the agenda for the special water master board meeting, which is the following week, Wednesday, the 17th at 10 a.m. here at AVEK or on Zoom. So that's what we have for upcoming events, and that concludes the GM report this evening.
Okay, is there any questions for General Manager? Okay, moving on, request for future agenda items.
You have a director.
Okay, Director Miller.
Okay. I want to just say I went to the AV wall over at the amphitheater at Marie Kerr Park. It's the half-size scale model of the Vietnam Memorial from Washington. It's portable. It's been in use for 16 years, traveling throughout the California and being displayed. And I went today. It's an awesome display. And it's too bad that it's being taken apart and distributed to different people. But we have news that the 76 people who were killed in the Vietnam War that are on the wall, the Rural Museum has agreed to take those panels. So they will be on display from time to time, right through at the fairgrounds, at the Rural Museum. So we won't lose the whole thing. But if you have time, they play 9 o'clock tonight. They do taps, and I understand. I haven't been there, but I understand it's heart wrenching. But they also have the wall up, I think, until midnight. So if you get a chance to go over there tonight, it's well worth it. If you've never seen it before, it's and the mentors, the docents of the wall are all Vietnam veterans, and they tell you all about everything, anything that you would want to know about it. So
Well, that's sad to hear.
that, yeah, that the different businesses are taking a panel, other people are taking a panel, but it won't be traveling. I guess there's 4 more mobile walls in the country that are still gonna circulate, but this one,
The one in the Real Museum, is that in Antelope Valley?
Uh-huh.
Okay, anyway, well, at least that's,
so we'll have those,
that's good. That's
yeah,
good.
with the 76.
Okay, thank you much.
Okay. No, I was gonna add on, just, but, yeah, it's, my understanding is it's, as it travels, it just becomes more difficult to move it, so that's why they made it.
And storage. And storage.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
So they've, got a lot of the families of the local, veterans that were lost in the war, are taking some of the segments that have their family members on it,
Well, I'm glad the Real Museum stepped up.
so.
They came and talked to the Corvette Club the other night, and they said that they were gonna donate it to the Ronald Reagan Museum was gonna take it, but then they decided not to.
Mm.
But I saw it yesterday, or today, for the first time, you saw how big it is. It's like 180 feet
Oh, really?
at an angle,
I didn't know
you
that.
know, but it's 180 feet.
Oh, well.
It's, you see those names on there, of those people dead, holy, that's just one little war, not World War I, not World War II. Oh my gosh,
Oh, my God.
war, it just makes you think how
Yeah.
horrible war is.
Yeah, terrible.
You see those names.
I didn't realize the size of it, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's just, and it's a happening.
But they, okay, attorney's report.
George, I have
Director Ferris.
it's not quite a director's report, but we have a meeting scheduled for December 23rd. Is there any consideration of possibly pushing that back or up or out?
Matt, you have a recommendation?
I do. I should have brought it up.
That's why I brought it up.
Yeah. So being that the water master meeting is on the 17th, I think we hold our first meeting in December, which is December,
On the 16th
or no, it'd be December 9th? 9th. And then we have a special AVEK board meeting on December 16th.
16th.
That way we can go through the water master agenda for the meeting on the 17th.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What do you think?
Sounds reasonable. At this point, we don't need a motion to that, do
We don't.
we?
I mean, if everybody concurs, that's a good plan. And then we can take the week of December 25th off. I mean, we won't take it off, but you know. we'll
I'll
have a
change
meeting.
that on your calendars if that's.
Is that
Done with it.
agreeable?
Sounds good.
Okay,
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, thanks, Rob.
yeah, good point, good point. Okay, going to the attorney's report, do we have a report?
Quick report, Mr. President, in reference to the measure that the board has been considering, the advice measure on the Delta Conveyance Project. I'm gonna have that memo over to the staff next week. I've been waiting to finish it, waiting on information from the LA County Registrar Recorder as to what the potential cost of that election would be if it were held next November. They still don't have that data, so I'm gonna send the memo over. There'll be a placeholder that we will, when we get that data, we'll send an addendum to the amendment, to the memo. It's important to see this data because there's gonna be a very dramatic cost difference as based upon the election day the board chooses to have this election, almost startling difference. And that's all I had to report.
Yep, yeah, thank you, that'll be very interesting. Okay, at this point, Jay, a motion to adjourn would be in order?
Okay, Mr. President, I'll make a motion to adjourn today's meeting.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Director Mercy, we have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary?
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Jay Tremblay,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, we're adjourned. Everybody have a good evening.
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye. Thank you for being here.